Hello, welcome back. The camera's just terrible. Welcome back to the next episode of the Matt Chim Experience. We're on episode 15 or 14 now, and today's going to be an interesting one. I'm doing another episode. Today, I'm actually doing an episode at 1 in the morning, so what that means is, I don't know, my roommates are definitely both sleeping. Hopefully, they both can't hear me. If they can, give me a bang. No bang, so we're probably good. And today, what I want to talk about is just a few different things that are going over my mind. The first is I'm kind of starting to realize very hardcore Gary Vaynerchuk's big thing on patience. I think I'm a lot better at patience now than what I once was. And what I've realized basically, guys, Gary's telling us that we have 30 plus years. 30 years until more. Like literally, he says if you got started at the age of 30, you literally just punted, 20 to 30, and nothing happened. You just literally fucked up for 10 years straight from 20 to 30. You could get started at 30 and still be an all-time great. And one of the things that we fail to realize, or at least oftentimes we do, is that we're younger than we think, and that we just have such a lack of perspective on time. Everybody today who's 20 years old, the way modern medicine's going, if it just stayed the same, you'd be living till 80. So you got another 60 years. That's at least a good 40 years of working life, working till you're 60, 40 years of working life. Think in terms of that, man. If you were to work 40 years straight on something, don't you think you could accomplish something great? What would you want to do? And that, my friends, is what Gary talks about with patience. Have patience in the macro, but micro speed. And then that's like Tai Lopez. He says, make haste slowly. And basically, the golden mean here, the two kind of forces that are pulling us in both directions is one side, we're trying to be really in it. Like, we got to get it now. We want to, you feel like you're falling behind. You feel like you're turning 21, 22, 23, and all your friends, or maybe you should be at a different point in your life. But says who? All these kind of different arbitrary goals that we make for ourselves can often lead to kind of unhappiness, and you have a false sense that you're falling behind. When in reality, one thing that I've tried to internalize a little bit more is I'm really only just starting maybe quarter number 2. I'm coming to the close of quarter 1. That's how I'm playing my game. Think of that, guys. That's such a different, for myself, it's such a different way to play. Gary talks about when he's 40, he still feels like he's young as if he was 20. And he's 40. Gary is literally twice my age. All right, and I just have such a lack of perspective on time, and I think one thing that a lot of people mess up on is just lacking the patience, the macro patience, making haste slowly. What's the saying? I don't know. Ty has another saying for why it's important to have patience, but that has really been critical to me. And then it's just so obvious. Okay, so say like I chose the niche of gaming. I decided gaming was my passion. If I were to grind on that thing for 30 years straight, you're telling me 30 years of diligent grinding where I'm actually hustling in the DMing other gamers, trying to get featured, trying to give back to the community. If I did that for 30 years straight, and I'm actually hustling, I'm actually putting a good 9 hours of real work a day in it after I do my job, or probably more likely, because Gary says you should probably moonlight your money rather than the other way around, I would probably spend a good work day in trying to produce content in some sort of gaming fashion if I wanted to be a gamer, and then make it night at night, or make it money at night. And 30 years from now, I wouldn't have anything. In my mind, I have the faith in myself that in 30 years I could do it. And the thing is, we're not realizing we're not going to live just 30 years. We're probably going to live, or work, I should say, from the age 20 for another 60 years. The way modern medicine is going, it's not unheard of to say that, by the time we're dying, that the average age expectancy might be somewhere closer to 90 or 100 years old. And that's especially thinking of this. What if you take care of your body? I'm 21. I have a good, I have made mistakes with my health. I might have eaten processed meat. I might not eat the best quality food. I might not have eaten all the nutrients. But if I took care of myself from here onwards, I would just be good. Like, everything from this point forward, I would literally just be fine if I just decided to take care of my body. And it's, it just relates to the old saying, when's the best time to plant a tree? When is the best time to plant a tree? 50 years ago, and when's the second best time? Right now. So one thing that I've kind of really internalized is I can use my age to my advantage. Being 21, I really just the pressure's really off. That's helped me a little bit. Maybe a little bit of stress is actually a good thing too, to kind of get you moving. But without that pressure, I've been having a good time. What else have I been learning? The other big thing I've been considering, now that I kind of realize where I am in life, is I'm trying to figure out what do I want to do. I don't know if you guys, like, I feel like a lot of people just don't know what they want to do in life. I don't know if that's true. I know for a fact myself, coming out of university, I would already say that I did university much more for my parents than myself, and I'm happy I did it. But now that I'm in the real world, quote unquote, I have an interesting decision to make, right? Like, what am I going to do? I'm no longer in some sort of system where I'm kind of being told what to do. And I really have no clue. I have faith. I'm like pretty confident. Like, it's going to work out. I'm sure I'll find something. Give me 5 years, and I'm going to find something. I'm just in kind of a tasting phase. It's too bad. It'd be nice if I could just kind of know like tomorrow, but I think I'm relatively realistic in it. Maybe I'm a little bit, I could be a little bit pessimistic maybe. Like, maybe I could do it a little faster, but I'm really not in a rush to find that thing. Gary Vee's big on, he relates this to tasting cherries. Oftentimes people will say, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do, for example, should I make content on gaming? Should I make content on psychology? These are real questions I'm asking myself. But should I make content on X, Y, and Z? And will I enjoy this as a pastime? Should I do interviews with whoever? I think I would enjoy that. But none of this really matters until you actually start doing things, until you actually start trying to produce around that kind of genre. Myself, what I know, let's start with what I know I like and what I know I don't like. I'm pretty confident in my past experience. I've been pretty into lucid dreaming. That's been interesting. And lucid dreaming is proven. It's just like a niche that would work. Like, if I were to be like, I could just go mercenary in terms of like niche, like mercenary niche. I have no doubt in my mind that if I were to work on lucid dreaming for a good like 3 to 5 years, that I could produce some sort of brand out of it. Really, that's what it's all coming down to. Thing is, lucid dreaming, while it is I just don't know if it's the passion I want to choose, because I do find it interesting. And lucid dreaming, guys, it's very like, if you haven't decided to try lucid dreaming, I would suggest it, because you can have some pretty surreal experiences there. And you imagine if you had the ability to control yourself in your dreams, and you could do that consistently. And one of the biggest benefits I thought of being able to control yourself in your dreams, or being conscious in your dreams, was just you're going to be able to ask yourself questions. You could ask your subconscious questions that you might not be able to do in the conscious world, which might, I don't know. That seems like a cool little benefit to me, although I don't know if it's worth it or not. And that's like a value statement to say whether or not it's worth it. I don't know if I want to do it. It's really what I'm saying. The other things I'm considering is psychology. I'm pretty into psychology. I remember in second year university, I used to spend all my time just literally going through Wikipedia and reading all the biases. I thought the biases was very interesting. And I could do like breakdowns of ads, like how these ads are using different biases on you. And I would just find that literally interesting for the inherent, just for the activity itself, not necessarily to do it for some other cause, which is a good signal that I might actually enjoy what I'm doing. However, I'm not doing it at this moment, so I don't know. The other thing I've considered doing is interviews with psychologists, and then kind of transitioning there to interviews with whoever. It seems like to me having a podcast, and the reason why I'm doing this is like a hack. Having some sort of podcast is literally, I really believe that having a podcast could be used as a hack to get to different kind of mentors. And if you could have a good brand on your podcast too, that would just be, that'd be the works. I'm trying to produce good content. The thing is, I really just have, like, if you're listening to me, you should I shouldn't make any sort of principles myself. Just listen to if I tell you, like, say Tai Lopez is this, like, that's what my goal should be. They're trying to tell you what the other great mentors are saying. But the truth of the matter is, you probably get better content if you were just to watch the other mentors, right? I'm just going to distill their thoughts, and it's not going to be as good. How I'm going to try to get around this, because I'm going to try to produce some good content, is I'm going to try to interview people that know more about things than myself. John Vervaeke, I'm very excited. Hopefully the interview still follows through. I emailed him today. We're supposed to be on for Monday, which is 2 days from now. I have so many good questions for John. Oh man, John Verrecki, I could ask you like 100 questions. And I'm sure I would learn a lot, and I hope I can share that learning with other people. The other thing that I'm considering doing, psychology, gaming, lucid dreaming, and just general business. I'm helping a company with their marketing right now. It's going well. I had the idea of following Tai Lopez's SMMA format, where he gets, a good 3 to 10 different kind of clients that you do the marketing for, and you can it's a higher paying skill and one that you can generally automate. If you have the right systems, you can produce the correct systems underneath you. However, I also read some comments on YouTube basically saying that, and this makes more sense to me, really what you need is not 10 different agencies paying you, but like 1, 2, or 3 different agencies that are really happy with you and you're producing a high result for them. So that's kind of been my focus, is I'm going to try to really help this company that I'm working with right now, and then go from there. And hopefully if I can help them at the highest level, I'll be able to use them as a reference for the next company. If, let's say, there's no higher level I can move towards with them. But yeah, helping them at the highest level because I can charge the most, because I help the most, right? And it just makes sense. A lot of top business people talk about how they like having less or higher ticket items because they have less customers, and generally when you have less customers, you have less kind of complaints that you have to deal with, less kind of customer customer service that you're going to have to do. So, if I had 3 different businesses that I was mostly automating and I was doing a high ticket kind of service for them, it'd be a little bit better than to have 10 different businesses where I might be doing a low ticket service for them, and there's 10 different instances where there could be some sort of chance for error. However, I guess you can make the argument that, since you're doing more for these 3 individual businesses, you could fuck up something at a higher degree. I don't know what the right answer is. It's probably somewhere in the middle, Aristotle's golden mean. But that's that. The other thing that I found really interesting, I was talking to somebody today, and I think they're 37 years old. And one thing that really struck out to me is they said, they still did not know like what happiness was, type idea. They didn't really find their calling, their fulfillment. And this is a pretty common like thought that might be heard around, where people just generally say, you never really know. Nobody really knows what they're doing. You get into the adult world. I know Warren Buffett said he was scared. He thought it'd be hard to make money in the business world, but once he got into the real world, he realized nobody really has it figured out. And one thing that really struck me was when this 37-year-old person said to me, they still didn't find happiness, or not necessarily didn't find happiness, but they're still looking for it, and it's a constant search. And that kind of relates to I think it's the Constitution, or I don't know what the actual document's called, but the pursuit of happiness, how it's written somewhere in the United States, somewhere in the books, where Benjamin Franklin says we have the pursuit of happiness, the right to pursuit of happiness, not the right to happiness. And what that means is life is really just one problem after another, or one obstacle after another. It's constant moving towards some sort of goal. Tony Robbins, I know he says that fulfillment comes from progress towards a goal. And that's life. That's just kind of like what life is. Like your everyday, like the moment you're watching or listening to this podcast, for myself, my moment of creating this podcast, this is literally just life. Like, a big grand slam, this is what it is. And it's really important, I believe, to be able to find a way that you can enjoy what you're doing the whole way through. And I do find this kind of enjoyable. Should I find this enjoyable? I don't think you really have to find or should find anything enjoyable, just as long as you do, and it's generally better for the world. You can have a little bit of morals. Other than that, I'm going to go into all the 4 different pillars: health, wealth. So let's just go through them all one at a time. Health, I'm going to try to, I've been hitting the gym a lot more consistent. I've been using Jeff Nippard's program. My big thing with the gym is my macros are kind of a little fucked up. I don't track them to start. I'm not really too worried about my calories, to be honest. I could probably lose 10 pounds, but I'm like, you know what I mean? I have a good amount of muscle. I'm pretty straight. My big thing was protein. Man. I'm like broke, so I don't buy protein. Although really, I'm not that broke. I like really should make the expense, but I've been cheaping out on protein. So I haven't been getting enough. I might be getting around 60 grams, 50 grams, 40 grams a day. And when you're bodybuilding, I'm hitting push pull leg split or pull push leg split. I'm in the gym 6 days a week. I run. I'm going to try to run every day. That's the next kind of move. But I'm hitting cardio consistently. I probably need more than 60 grams of protein to even just maintain the muscle. Although I don't know shit about biology. I don't know anything about health. And I've heard every fucking different direction in health. And I'm just very uneducated and ignorant in that subject. So I guess really tomorrow I should go take a little bit more look into what type of macros I need. And I should follow through with that. And I hope I can come back on the podcast tomorrow and say that I did follow through with that. Health, wealth. What I'm doing there is I really want to help this one business that I'm helping right now. I want to help them to the highest degree. So really I think how I learned that is I already have a pretty good foundation. Is I'm just going to reach out to different kind of internet marketers to be on the podcast. That's how I'm going to learn. I'm just going to ask them on the podcast straight up. So you guys get to learn with me type thing. I'll just ask them the questions I want to know. Other than that, what else are we thinking here? Health. Oh, and then another thing for wealth is I'm also going to try to find some sort of side hustle. Like my life is my work and my work is my life is a quote that comes to my mind. And one thing that I want to do is I want to find what it is that I would do even if the money wasn't there and get money doing that. Because, I love what you do. You never work a day of your life, that type of thing. And I really do think you should pursue your passion, or if you can find your passion, or at least something you really like when it comes to your work. Tai Lopez, I know he talks a little bit about this, and the devil's in the details about how you should not do what you love, but actually do something you like. Well, I want to find what I like, and I'm just kind of starting that voyage right now. I'm just coming out of university. I'm really graduating in like 2 days. I'm finishing my last exam, and that exam is worth 20%, so it's really just a test. And even if I were to fail that exam, I would probably still pass the course. So I'm very much not worried. And the way I'm going to kind of find this different, what would you call it? Different kind of, what's the word for it? Different kind of niche that I want to pursue is I'm just going to try different things, document what's happening, and just produce content. Other than that, I'm not sure if there's much more. Oh, relationships is the next. So I'm going to go through all the different 4 pillars. Health, wealth. Is there anything more on wealth I want to add? No, not really. Just doing the podcast and kind of testing out different things. So what those different things might be that I'm going to test out. I'm interested in the gaming niche. If you know me from high school, I was probably one of the biggest nerds that you ever meet. I don't know if I have an obsessive personality, but I got obsessed with video games growing up. I probably, like, you guys don't understand, I put in maybe 30 days of 2K a year, and that was just like one video game, and then I played Xbox every day, so I could be playing The Witcher 3, I could be playing Halo, so I imagine I probably put in like 2 months of fucking gameplay a year, so 1/6 of all my waking time, 1/6 of all my time, so more like half of my waking time was spent on Xbox in high school, which is a ridiculous stat. Looking back at it, and I had fun, honestly. I don't regret it, but it's kind of fucked up. It's probably not good for me. I think I developed sitting problems from it, but yeah, that's classic fucking Chinese guy, I guess. Which brings up an interesting topic today. I was at a dinner and a kid said to me, never happened to me before. I didn't know how to react, but it's an interesting topic. I'm not really that offended by it, and I want to throw it out there because I don't know what is the proper response to this, but I said something to a kid, and the kid just say something like, "I don't speak Chinese," and because I'm Chinese, and what you do with that, I don't know. Like it's clearly like the kid probably like doesn't even really know what he's talking about, or if he does, like the kid just got raised the wrong way, I guess. Like I don't really blame the kid, but it's just like I don't know what to do in that situation, and I wasn't gonna like discipline like a random kid, and I'm not gonna like make a big deal out of something like that. Just cause, although maybe I should have. I honestly don't know. Like maybe that's gonna cause some sort of like worse harm later on in life because he's gonna say that to somebody else, and that other person's not gonna like react the right way. But I don't like, you know what I mean. I could have corrected all this right now, but there was a lot of shock factor, and I didn't really know what to say. But going back to wealth, yeah, just trying different things, and of course, consistently learning. And I think the podcast is really going to help me learn. Uh, and then relationships. So there's there's three parts to relationships. I would say is your family, your friends, and your romance. In terms of romance, I think I'm gonna. So one thing to tell you about myself, and this is gonna make it a little bit more of a personal podcast now. So if you're listening, you're getting the deep insight into Matthew's psyche. In relationships, growing up in high school, I was kind of a awkward guy. Why is that? I don't know. And I'm not really big on the like Bell Let's Talk type stuff. Although maybe it's like good for society. I don't really know anything about it. But I probably had like some severe case of like some sort of anxiety, and like shyness was probably one of them. I remember, like, I don't know what if that was like just it's probably some form of genetics, like my environment, just my general decision making prudence. Uh, a whole kind of combination that led me to be kind of that way, where I was just generally a little bit more anxious than the average person, or had anxiety talking to new people. One thing that really helped me though, as I went to door, I did door to door for 2 summers. I would call it one summer combined, like 2 half summers. And, I think that's really helped me. I wouldn't consider myself overly shy, although, one of the things that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go up to a random girl and basically ask her for her phone number, because, uh, in my mind, that's just like I guess you could, like, I don't know what a better way to meet, like, people would be. There's also the argument that maybe you shouldn't force it. However, I would counter that with one of the quotes Ty Lopez had was basically, if you want to have a happy marriage, like, who do you think would have a happier marriage? The guy that's dated one person or the guy that's dated 11 people? And it's an interesting question because, you can kind of get tainted if you date too many people. And I could see how that could probably fuck up your attachment, your emotional attachment part of your psyche, just because you keep, you know what I mean? You applied it too many times. I'm not sure exactly how that affects you, but there's also arguments to be made against just doing. Um, I really don't know. More research is going to have to be done into this, maybe. I guess I should do that. So that's another thing that I'm going to have to commit to doing for tomorrow. I've heard different people talk about, and I shouldn't even talk about this, but I'll just say it very briefly. I've heard different people talk about how, uh, like, first of all, there's three different attachment styles. So there's anxious attachment style, there's avoidant attachment style, and there's like secure. And anxious people, basically, if they're not with their partner, they get anxious. They get like separation anxiety. And then avoidant partners are basically people who, like, they get into a relationship but they like never spend time with the other person. And then secure people is just like what you want to be, where they're kind of just like, they can be with the other person or not. I should probably learn into like why these different like attachment theories form, like how, what could you do to become more secure. um I should probably read into, like, is it generally bad to date, like, maybe is it a bad thing to date multiple people at once? My first instinct would say yes, but I really don't know. I haven't looked into it at all. um yeah, I'm pretty much just an amateur when it comes to the relationship side and romance. So that's one thing I'm going to want to test out in my life, at least. I'm not sure. So there's an interesting question here of, like, am I going to get a wife when I grow up, right? And I'm 21 now. And I heard my friend told me they said they wanted a wife by 25, which is, honestly, just thinking back to this memory right now, it's kind of an arbitrary marker and it doesn't really make sense. Uh, but it's a marker that's 25 is not my marker, but it's an interesting subject because I do have some sort of concept in my mind that I would probably prefer to have some sort of romantic partner before. I'd probably want to find a wife before I turn maybe 60, right? That's extreme. Is it 50 I want it before? Probably. And just how soon would I want to have it? So what would I have to do to make it so that I have a romantic partner by then? 25 for myself seems very unrealistic, considering that's 4 years from now. I think I might even date, have a girlfriend for 4 years before I even decide to marry that person. And then that's another question that has to come up before that. It's, am I going to get married? I have no fucking clue. I've heard so much shit about, like, how relationships in general is kind of a trap, but there's also a lot of arguments for why it's actually good for you. Again, life's just one big game of fucking self-awareness, and if you don't know what you're gonna do, or you living your life on other people's opinions is generally, it's a bad strategy. It's not a good ESS, evolutionary stable system, as Richard Dawkins would say. I really do think I should probably read more. I can just see as I talk right now, I'm in a pretty decent flow. As you hear me talk, and I can kind of keep going. And the reason why I have such a good flow, I would argue, is just because I've consumed so much knowledge. One thing Jordan Peterson says, and you can see I'm just quoting what other people say. One thing Jordan Peterson says is if you want to acquire wisdom, you just really want to acquire a bunch of knowledge first. So then, you have like a big kind of fucking, you have a big word bank, so to speak, to choose from. You have a big kind of bank of different thoughts that you can choose from. Hopefully you're filling your mind with the best thoughts that there are, so you kind of listen nonstop to the tops. So that could be like Aristotle if you want to learn philosophy. That could be any top psychologist in terms of if you want to learn psychology. That could be like your top coach if you want to learn some sort of sport. That could be your top chef or physical trainer. Whatever it is, just go to the tops. And you can the person who made the most money if you want to learn to make money. Any kind of subject, that's generally the best rule. Get a mentor, don't reinvent the wheels, what basically it distills down to. And it just makes sense. And yet, we all know this. We all still don't do it. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I know all, at this point, one of the kind of realizations I've had is I pretty much know, and I don't. Here's the thing, I don't. But I know generally enough. I know pretty much all the success principles. And sadly enough, you probably do too, because they're not kept a secret at all. And honestly, if you really don't know them, it's not that hard to find them. You could literally just go on YouTube and type in, Evan Carmichael did a top 10 rules for almost every big kind of powerhouse player. So you could, if Oprah is your kind of girl and that's the girl that you look up to, you could literally go into YouTube and type in Oprah top 10 rules for success, and then you could just find what she said. Literally what Oprah says in interviews are her top 10 kind of rules for success. So the principles that lead to success are not hidden. They're not fucking like secrets. Literally, it's just about actually applying them. And that's why Gary Vee gets so angry, because myself included, we all just talk a big talk. And I don't know what to do, because I'm trying to meditate on why am I not kind of going to that next level, or why am I not performing? And I think one of the things that is happening to me is I'm just not. I feel like there's some sort of drive that's missing. Maybe it's I don't have a fire under my ass. Is that something that needs to happen? Why is there no fire under my ass? Why am I being lazy about certain subjects? Gary argues that certain subjects might inherently not be good for you, and the reason why you're lazy is because you don't actually want to do them. That makes sense, but there's also an element of some things just need to be done. For example, clean your room, right? So I don't know what the right balance is. And in terms of work, I'm pretty certain that you should at least make it something a subject that you have a deep curiosity about. For example, I don't have a deep curiosity about flipping burgers at McDonald's, so that's probably not a career that I'm going to want to pursue. And I love using an inversion tool, guys. I'm telling you, if you can learn to invert to help you think, because I just did it right there, right? I just thought, well, what would a job be that I don't want? McDonald's. And that's going to help me kind of realize what a job that I do want to be. So another job that I don't want would probably be working at Subway. Any sort of fast food kind of. I probably wouldn't want to be a waiter, to be honest, just because, it'd be good for part-time, the moonlight money so I could live. But realistically speaking, being a waiter would kind of suck, because you'd have to deal with all these stupid fucking orders from your boss. And then generally speaking, there's stupid little small things that generally get people mad, and you're only making about maybe $20 an hour, and you're spending your time somewhere else, and you're not really learning anything. But this is a big game of self-awareness. I just don't want to do that. If you are somebody who loves talking to people, and you think, maybe you want to have your own restaurant one day when you grow up, and you want to learn the customer service kind of aspect and work every position, and you're just getting started, or maybe you're a little further in and you want to try the weighing position, it might be a better decision for you. It's one big game of self-awareness. What's right for me isn't right for you, probably. And that's kind of an interesting thing of life, and that's something that I've had to learn to cope with. Is everybody else is different than you. Everybody is different. That's a very, very profound thing to have, guys. A lot of people, I don't know if it is that they just don't realize it, but I would say a lot of times people don't get that no two people generally have the exact same business, life, values, and decisions that they want to make. So when you bond too quickly, especially to somebody else, or too deeply to somebody else without being independent, you can run into some trouble where you guys are kind of divergent, and that's causing a deep conflict where you're not sufficiently independent already, so you can't make it on your own. So now you're in a tough spot, right? I don't know. That's just a thought that I've had and I've noticed in myself. So I've worked to become a little bit more independent. And Gary's right. I mean, Gary V, guys, I'm not even joking. Gary Vee literally just says all the truths, and then sometimes they're kind of like smacks in the face, and you kind of don't want to hear it. But I haven't really found anything I don't agree with. I'd be very interested to see what people don't agree with Gary Vee on. Maybe his philosophy on work or hustle, 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 hustle. However, I would say that that's a very surface view of what Gary is saying, because if I've consumed so much of this guy's content, the reason why he said the hustle and work is because a lot of people were complaining that they weren't making money, or like whatever, they weren't making $1 million. So Gary said the answer to that question, how do I make money or make $1 million, is the hustle, hustle, hustle. However, what he realized is a lot of people don't actually want to make money, and that there's bigger problems at hand. And now, if you look at Gary's content, you'll notice he doesn't really talk about hustling. He doesn't really talk about having that side hustle nearly as often as he used to. And he's talking a lot more about judgment, getting off the parents' payroll, living your own life, not being bothered by other people's opinions. And these are, I would argue, and as soon as he said them, I'm so happy he did, because I had enough insight to see, oh yeah, I can see that happening in my life right here. I think the big one for myself was fear of judgment of others, and that's an interesting topic. Fear of judgment of others. That's probably just some sort of evolutionary mismatch. And if you don't know evolutionary psychology, or at least have some sort of base in it, I really recommend learning it. But just to give you a little bit of a background, we grew up, theorized in the savannah in the African wild, and we grew up in tribes of about 150 people. So being ostracized from the group could likely lead to us dying, because if we got ostracized by our tribe, we're going to be in the savannah in the middle of fucking nowhere with forests and shit, and we're probably going to get eaten by some sort of tiger. The group's what kind of protect us. So one of the reasons why so many people have such a huge anxiety when it comes to talking in front of people, I think talking in front of crowds is the second most feared thing after death, which is kind of crazy. Second, you know what I mean? Literally just talking in front of others, public speaking. Because it's just kind of deep rooted in our back of our minds. But we live in a different world than we grew up in, or that we evolved in, I should say, 50,000 years ago. And generally speaking, we're not going to get ostracized. That's not really a problem. And to prove this, I would ask you, do you know anybody that has been ostracized? Now, you might think of a few people that they're really unpopular, or that have really just fucked up and now nobody likes them. But think of what they had to do to become ostracized. The people I could think that are ostracized are probably either coked up on drugs, they're not good people, they might just steal, they're generally negative influences in your life. So now imagine you just were a positive influence and you put yourself out there, which is kind of what I'm trying to do, although I'm probably not the best example of it. But if you're generally just trying to be a positive influence on others, you're probably going to have it's very practical, to be good, nice to others, because generally what goes around comes around. Even though that saying probably has no scientific backing, it's pretty true. It's a really good rule of thumb to use. Karma, Gary Vee says this too. It's just really practical. It just let's listen. Let's not get into whether or not fucking karma has some sort of scientific background, where the spirits of the universe kind of push the energies in all these different directions, and what you push out is what you get. I don't know about all that, but what I've found in my own life is it's a pretty practical rule. Generally, when I'm nice to others and I'm honest and I just kind of act with good intentions towards others, I have better things happen to me. People are just generally nicer to me because I'm being nice to them. There's no kind of loopholes. When I do the opposite, I've found in my life at least, it's not. I get the opposite back. For every action is ever an equal reaction. That's a physics kind of thing, but it kind of applies here too. Whereas if I'm mean to others, generally, that's going to lead to some sort of resentment in that energy, or blah blah blah. I'm going to get some sort of mean action back to me. Again, I'm not big on this whole wishy-washy energy, blah blah blah, spirit. I don't know about all this, but I do know that it's a pretty practical tool, and it seems to hold some truth to it. In evolutionary psychology, one of the things they talk for is the tit for tat strategy, and in game theory, this would be, if you've heard of the prisoner's dilemma, basically, it's the best strategy for getting the most gain out of life. And basically what it says is that you should reciprocate to whatever the other person does and always start as being a cooperative person when your two options are cooperating and defecting. And defecting, sorry, I just dropped the mic. The recording stopped, but I can just start it up again. When the two options are cooperating and defecting basically means taking advantage or not doing what the other person wants, and cooperating means just kind of like helping the other person and getting your own kind of gain at the same time. Now, I will say that the tit for tat strategy only works in certain scenarios, and when there's a level of miscommunication or chaos in the system, that there are different strategies that actually work better. I have no clue. Game theory is way too complicated for me to really understand to its full complexity, but the basic prisoner's dilemma is something that most people can kind of get pretty easily. Something else that I just found interesting while recording this podcast, I'm pretty much going on a fucking rant, right? Like, you're listening to me, and thank you for listening. If you made it this far, please leave a like. I mean, seriously, I don't know. You made it this far. I would assume that my viewership is probably about 0 people at this moment. So if you're viewing this, you're literally one person more than I would expect to watch this, which is pretty cool. So congratulations to you. Leave a like, cause love ya. And one of the things that I found interesting is, like, I'm really getting into a flow, and I could use this to my advantage because I know for a fact that I have a different chronotype than what average society might have. I'm definitely a type of guy that gets a little bit more creative at night. To give you an example, right now it's currently about 1:10 a.m. I'm probably going to go sleep after this just because I only got 6 hours of sleep last night. I had an exam at 9 a.m., which led me to having less sleep. So I'm just a little bit tired. But the big thing to notice from this is I'm actually getting to know myself a lot better after moving out and just kind of living life. And one thing I learned about myself is I'm definitely a night guy. It's too bad because most of society works on kind of different chronotype where they wake up at 8 a.m., 7 a.m., go to work for 9, come home at 5, go to sleep at 10, 11 p.m. and repeat that cycle for their life. Whereas myself, I like to stay awake probably to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock a.m. and wake up, 8 hours from that, so 11 or 12 p.m. I'm honestly the type of guy that likes 9 hours of sleep, and that might honestly be because I go to sleep a little bit later. Because I remember when I used to read I read a good maybe 5 to 7 books on sleep. There's a lot of controversy. Some people argue chronotype didn't exist. Some people said it did. So that's one thing to start with. And the other thing a lot of people talked about as well was that sleeping from the times, I think it was like 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. was worth like double the amount of sleep quality. I have no clue. I've heard also people say that isn't true. I don't have no idea. That's one thing that kind of sucks about the health industry in general. It's just that it's not the most rigorous science. Like, if this was physics, that would not be the case where two people are saying two different things and directly opposing each other. And yeah, if I had to guess, it probably has to do a big part with genetics. Like, it's a big one big game of self-awareness. That quote kind of fits here as well. So yeah, going back to this all started with relationships. I'm gonna try to pick up some girls. I'm gonna be honest. I'm pretty scared to do that. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's true. I think it's Tim Ferriss talks about how it's really important to get comfortable with doing the uncomfortable. David Goggins talks about pretty much how you have to callous your mind, and the way you do that is by taking the hard road. Even if I wasn't doing this for any sort of relationship, it'd probably be a good mental training for myself, just because I think, yeah, the reason why it'd be a good mental training for myself is because it would make me very uncomfortable and probably very anxious to do it. So that might make me a little bit more of a social person, or it might just make me a stronger person overall. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do that. I have plans, and really, there's no excuse not to do it in my mind, because there's the argument for that. If I wanted to try to get a relationship, this would probably be the best option for me. And the other argument is too, what is really the fear? And this probably comes again to that evolutionary mismatch where growing up it might have been really bad to be ostracized from the group, especially from members of the opposite sex, because that would effectively mean that your genes die off if you kind of fucked up with all the girls, or if you're a girl and you fucked up with all the guys in the troop. But we're in the 21st century where you live around, this is something that we're not evolutionary adapted for. So this is kind of interesting fact. But you got to remember how many random people you see throughout your day that you do not know, they're strangers to you. That was not something that ever happened in their evolutionary history. That's a very, very new fact, because generally we grew up in troops of 150 people. To give you an idea of how that might have affected you, think of your graduating class of high school. Mine was 400. So I knew pretty much, or at least I had a somewhat acquaintance with a very, very high percentage of the people that were in my graduating class. Now, that's literally triple the amount that would be in our whole troop for my whole life. And I was with these 3 people for 3 years. So just imagine how kind of familiar you would probably be with everybody. And the other thing too, you're probably going to have to trade with all these people in your troop, or you're going to have to work with them in some way or another. So you're going to be even closer. And yeah, there's like so many different variables to this that are just different. And then I probably have a little bit of learned helplessness because I never really talked to girls growing up. So I might have just had some learned helplessness that developed that way. Again, just like a psychological bias, because when I really think of it, there's nothing really to be scared of. The big thing, like even this fear of judgment, I'm literally done university. I'm not in any kind of institution. I'm really not going to see anybody that I don't want to see for the rest of my life, pretty much. Maybe at the gym. But that's kind of interesting. That might not be the best thing either. I could see how it's good to have kind of these social gatherings where you're seeing people you don't know. So for that case, I might get involved in some sort of beer league for basketball maybe, or I don't know. I have no clue what I'm going to do there, but it does seem like it might be a good idea to get involved in some sort of community activity. But again, the big thing would be just doing it with the right person. So yeah, that's for relationships. For friends, that's for romance. For friends, I think I'm more of an introverted guy. I did a little get together tonight, and it was fun. I think I behaved in a somewhat not extroverted way, but extroverted enough, and I could definitely feel it drain me. I'm totally introverted guy. It's kind of interesting to see. So these are just things that I'm learning about myself as I go through life, and it's good to this is one big game of self-awareness what life is. So it's probably a good thing that I learned this a little bit sooner rather than later. Other than that, health, family. Honestly, I'm not a big family guy. I'm too lazy to get into it right now, but basically, just has to do with the culture that I raised in. I would say I'm not like the closest with my family, but I'm also not distant. Like if I saw my mother or father, I would not have any kind of ill feelings towards them at all, and I would have like a pretty genuine or normal conversation. But it's not that close either. To give you an example, growing up, I never, not once, had a actually, that's a lie. I could probably count on my hands how many times me and my family had dinner at some sort of restaurant or family game night. I never not once had a family game night. I never not once had a family movie night. I was the only child. Growing up my whole life, I would say somewhere around 90% of the nights, 95% around the nights, it was only myself and my mother in the home, and my dad went to work at night. It was just like an interesting kind of way to grow up, and I don't think it was necessarily good or bad. Maybe it's probably good and bad for different reasons, right? It might be bad if I wanted to have a very close family, but it could be good if I wanted to be more dedicated to something else. And again, we're not hostile towards each other at all. It's just like it's kind of like distant might not be the best word, but it kind of conveys the feeling that I experience at least. So in terms of that, I mean, I'm going to be pretty open, but yeah, I'm not a big family guy, which might not be a good thing. I think that's a value statement, though, to be honest, and it's kind of interesting. I don't think my parents would be very happy to hear that, but I mean, I'd say this to them too. I would ask them, I'm not opposed to being a family guy, so if they want to do it, that's cool. I'm okay with that, but I'm also not like opposed to not doing it too. So I'm pretty neutral on that. But family's probably pretty important, to be honest. I could see a whole bunch of different ways how not being close with your family might actually mess up with your psyche, and I kind of wonder sometimes how that might have messed with my psyche. One example would be, so I grew up an only child, no siblings, and I didn't really spend too much time playing with my parents. So that led me to playing video games all the time, and I believe that's why I kind of developed such a high habit in high school. What that also led me to do is to develop I don't really need to be with other people to be entertained. Like, I probably I went through a course of my life in the summer where I spent literally every waking moment of my life with somebody else, basically. And I didn't really enjoy it. And then before that, I spent every waking moment, before I went to Fluent, or before I went to sell door-to-door home security, I actually spent every waking moment of my life alone. Not alone, but pretty much not hanging out with anybody. I actually hung out with one friend, Nico, maybe once or twice a week. I would go to school, and then I'd come home and read and study, and that was kind of my life. And I wouldn't produce content at that time. I was trying to make all these different types of Shopify stores on drop shipping, and that was my life. And honestly, if I had to choose one of those two lives, I would choose the one where I was by myself. I think more realistically is some sort of balance where I'm hanging out with friends maybe. If I want to add a romance into there, I imagine I'm going to see my romance partner maybe like once, maybe twice a week. Same thing with my friends, once, maybe twice a week. So that a total of 4 interactions with friends a week, or maybe even every day. I could do up to 7, I think, but I don't want to be spending hours on end every day doing it. And I honestly do value the days that I spend without any social interaction, or very, very limited, maybe like an hour of that day or like 2 hours of that day. Which might make me, which I don't know if that's honestly good or bad, or if that's some sort of coping mechanism. Like, I really have, guys, this is something that I realized, and honestly, I could be wrong. 2 things. Number one, I seriously got, like, I really don't know anything. Like, if you ask me any question other than, like, the basics that I would say I know, but I probably don't. But, like, any sort of scientific question, any sort of question that actually has, like, an answer that we can just Google, I don't know why people ask me it, because I don't know how I would know that answer. And when you Google it, you could literally just get the answer from like any top scientist or any top kind of like you could Google any sort of problem and you'd probably get the answer from somebody who's actually done it or solved it, rather than asking me, who I could just kind of like speculate. That's where I try to learn from others the most as I can, but I don't know if I'm the best at it. And that's another thing. People would ask me, for example, how do I learn better? Well, I've heard that chunking your memory sequencing's good. Chunking's good, which means basically like separating it into different chunks. I've heard that creating a visual space in your mind. So if you wanted to remember like a bunch of numbers, what you could do is associate some sort of letter to each number. So one strategy for this is choosing a word with 10 letters. So you could use a word like shortcake. Shortcakes with a Z at the end, and then do 1, 2, 3, 1 for S, 2 for H, 3 for O, 4 for R, 5 for T, you know what I mean, all the way up to 9 and 0. And then with those letters, if you need to remember any sort of string of numbers, you could kind of create some sort of story. So let's say I need to remember the numbers 1, 2, 3. So I could do SHO for shortcake, SHO, and then I could kind of create some sort of picture in my mind of that. So that kind of sounds like show. So I could just use that. That's pretty easy. And show would look like I need to remember this number. So let's say I need to remember it for some sort of test I'm doing. I can imagine that I'm doing a test on a TV show. And then that would remind me of the word show, SHO. And then that would remind me of 1, 2, 3. And then that's how I can remember it, by creating some sort of memory anchor, I guess, in your mind. But again, there's probably way more to it, and I probably fucked up a bunch of things just by explaining that. And you might have listened to that and thought that seemed pretty logical, or that seemed pretty legit. And here's the thing, I'm telling you right now, I'm literally telling you, I probably messed something up in that explanation. And so that's why I'm always surprised when people ask me these things. But I might not have. I honestly don't know. I really just don't fucking know. So that was the realization I had too, that I don't know. And then there's something else. Let me just think here for a second. I don't know. I can't remember. That's too bad. But yeah, I'm pretty much out of thoughts for the podcast here. Just trying to think. Going from here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to edit this up, probably post a clip on Instagram, whichever kind of thought that I think would be good for Instagram. Or I might even just record a video native for Instagram on my phone, just because. Bye-bye. One thing that I forgot to add in here, please like, comment, subscribe, rate the podcast. It really helps me a lot. And if you made it this far, if you literally listened to the ending part, even if you skipped to the ending part, I would still appreciate it. Although you don't really have to do it. But yeah, have a good night.